The current incumbent systems we have is old, is centuries old, and it's bound to break down sooner or later.
Welcome back to Gen Z Talks, where today I'm delighted to be joined by a special guest from India, whose experience includes being head of design for 10 plus TEDx events, and is currently studying for an MBA in FinTech at ITM Business School in India. He is also a big advocate for financial and FinTech literacy in India. So I'd like to give a big warm welcome to Pranav Kumar. Pranav, welcome.
Hey Dan, hi, nice to be here.
Thank you for joining us. And I'm looking forward to having a real deep conversation about FinTech, an exciting topic where we're seeing a huge rise. And I want to discuss a bit more about what FinTech is, and especially opportunities for young people going forward. So perhaps we can start very quickly with your background to elaborate, and then we can dive into
Okay.
what FinTech is.
So as a background, I'm currently doing my master's, as you mentioned, and my grad school has been in engineering. So I did my BTech, that's Bachelor of Technology, which is an engineering degree in India. And then I moved on to master's in FinTech. Worked in FinTech quite recently this year. My college provided me a lot of opportunities to work in two of the companies. One of them was India's first FinTech consultancy called the Digital Fifth, and one of them is India's largest neobank called Neo Solutions.
For those who don't know, what is FinTech?
FinTech is basically a portmanteau for financial technology, which in very simpler terms is basically what emails did to post office is what FinTech is doing to financial industry. Credit card is one example of financial technology, how tech has supported financial industry to make it accessible for people. To keep it as simple as possible, it's basically how technology is used in financial services world to make it more accessible.
And there's been a huge rise
There
of.
has been definitely.
Why is this, and when did it start?
Basically, it's been there for, as you know, necessity is the mother of invention. And people have seen how banking, how financial world has somehow been losing trust in past couple of decades. If you recall the 2008 meltdown, since then a lot of rise had been evolved into making the banking more accessible and transparent. So fintech just does not only stand for being technologically advanced, it also stands for transparency it brings in. So people started developing their own APIs, started bringing on people away from the centralized system towards a more decentralized form. And that made people experiment into it. Like, let's say if you have a restaurant nearby to you, you hear it serves a very good dish. Everybody would want a piece of it. So people thought this is a very good thing to do. It's a very humanitarian work to bring financial services to even the remotest areas of Earth with a more transparent approach. That's how the fintech rose up in the last two or last decade, if not last 2 decades.
Okay, and tell me a bit more about the business model of FinTech. How does FinTech work in terms of who their market is and the service?
Basically, fintech essentially relies on the areas where the traditional services are inaccessible and are unaffordable. If you would see a couple of years back before this micro investing came up, people used to think that investing in financial markets requires huge sums of money. And to invest in it, you would need to go to a financial advisor, and that would also be chargeable. So people weren't able to bill that much, pay that much. So fintech brought about an open system to banking and investment so that there is it's all digital. So you don't require a brick and mortar branch or an office precisely. You can just work remotely and develop your APIs and just include that. So business model included services, and more of them comes from the VC funding we have. A lot of funding goes on, and a lot of demand goes on. Then a lot of companies go get into IPOs, they get public, they raise money, and they return in form of dividends. So business model usually works in a way that it lets people tap into them.
And Generation Z, Pranav, are very tech savvy, as you know, your generation. Do you think their skills are suited to kind of starting up in fintech? And if so, what resources would they need to go with the skills to be able to start a fintech, by themselves or with a couple of founders?
I mean, if you look at the dynamics of this specific industry, it's changing every now and then. Every moment you see, every year there is something new coming up. And with the speed of processing we have evolved into, we might need to reskill every now and then, if not possess the skill. The basic skill is the human connect we have. The fintechs majorly not just technological reliant, they're more human reliant, as you could see. So the basic skills we already possess during our schooling, our college days, and we just need to reskill them and have an idea collective and match with a certain group of people and start with anything. People could start with a blog, people could start with a website, people could start as an aggregator or a liaison between different parties to start off. So obviously people may require certain skills and may require certain reskilling to come up with. Starting up is not very difficult. You just need to take a step. Basically, if you see two parts of it, one is finance and one is tech. You need to be financially literate and you need to at least learn one technology programming language. People generally go with Python because it's quite versatile and it's easy to learn. And people could build, combining those two, you have fintech.
Generation Z are soon to become the biggest consumers as they're getting older. This is a generation who are going to be buying, who are going to be spending, and they're going to obviously dictate as to how they want their services to be done. Do you think that fintech suits the needs and requirements of your generation, Generation Z, coming up? And do you think, as a result, banks need to change the way that they do things quickly to meet the demands and expectations of what's soon to become the biggest consumer market, Gen Z?
I'm glad you brought up that point because this has led to the rise of neobanks in India and open banking in European Union. Like you have Revolut there, you have Monzo, N26 there. These were banks which challenged the traditional incumbent banks to bring up. And in India, if you look at banking as an industry, it's quickly picking up fintech products and developing products into that segment to match with that. Because generations as ours, the average Indian workforce is of 21 years of age in India, if I'm not wrong. And in next decade, we will be 31. So by and large, you would be dictating the governmental and basically functionality of the entire country suited towards a more digital only experience. And that thing so has already pushed banks into a rat race for beating fintechs, not if not collaborating with them. So they are hiring more, they are getting getting their employees reskilled, they're becoming more aware of what's going on and they're accepting the change in a much better way, because if you're not accepting it, you're not relevant anymore. The current incumbent systems we have is centuries old, and it's bound to break down sooner or later. But the question is not about right now, it might break down 50 years down the line. But when it does crumble down, we might not be relevant. So what people right now I saw and I understood about are they're scared of being relevant or are scared to talk about bad things happen. That's a universal thing, especially in South Asian countries, that the older generation feels that it's not right to talk about bad things happening. Think positively that this might not happen. But what our generation understood that it's okay to fall down. If in case our ship sinks, we'll swim out to the shore. We can pick ourselves up and reinvent and reproduce something new.